guys, and welcome to day 4. Man, we're just trucking along here, aren't we? So I'm gonna go ahead and apologize right now. If you hear any weird scratching in the audio, Houdini is shedding right now and he's horribly restless. He always gets he always gets really cranky whenever it's time for him to shed, so yeah. So anyway, my original idea for today's theme was to design my characters as princes. You know, kind of like yesterday, but not. But I kind of wanted to change that up a little bit. So for Crow, I did keep the whole prince idea going. I based his outfit off of the prince from Cinderella. Does he have a name besides Charming, or is that his name? Man, his parents are really banking on their son being handsome, huh? So anyway, since you'll probably never get a chance to see him all gussied up like this, I figured I should take the opportunity. So for this one, I toned down his hair significantly by darkening and desaturating it. Since most of the princes seem to have black or brown hair, I figured he should try and blend in a little bit. Plus, I figured the less saturated tones may make him seem a bit more mature and prince-like. I used the warm tones his outfit normally has and desaturated them, making more pastel sort of shades. I wanted this design to be a lot more calm than how he normally looks, so I kept everything pretty soft. Again, kind of like yesterday, nothing really too challenging. Except for one thing, of course. That gosh darn little rose there. I've always sucked at drawing anything floral. Of course, it's a bit easier digitally since there are tons of pre-made brushes you can get, and you'll see me use some later, but I wanted to try and actually draw the rose he has in his hand, since I did want to challenge myself this month. So I know it's not the best, and I could have worked a bit on the angle and more on the stem, but I'm just happy the actual floral part of the rose came out okay. It took so long to get it just right, especially for the angle I wanted it at. I think I should have tinkered around with the line thickness a bit more, but other than that, I think it came out okay. So instead of the gray accents his outfit normally has, I changed it to gold to keep the warm theme going throughout his outfit. I did use a pre-made brush for his little tassel chain thing, and for a border you'll see me use later in the background. After the rose, I was just like, alright, I'm done. That took way too long. The braid pattern isn't too hard to draw, but I really wanted to start on the coloring at that point. As for all the shading, like I said before, I wanted everything to stay pretty soft, so I avoided too bright or too dark of highlights and shading. I wanted all the gold accents to be the shiniest part, so I put a bit more work into those. This is probably the most mature and dignified Crow will ever look. As for the background, since I wanted it to be reminiscent of Cinderella, I made it that classic Cinderella blue and even threw in a castle for good measure. Using the Disney logo as reference, of course. No, I don't have a problem. What are you guys talking about? Then I just covered it with sparkles, just like last time, and drew on a nice quick border for Crow, and it's done. So for Ray, this time I purposely aged her up just a bit. I wanted her to look like some young adventurer, but I felt like her normal look was a bit too childlike. So I made her eyes just a bit smaller and changed her body proportions around a bit. For this one, I used Flynn Rider and various links from the Legends of Zelda games as reference. I also pulled her hair up this time to get more of that adventurer look. I don't get to draw it very often, so I'll take the opportunity. And I do need to work on drawing hair in various styles, so this is a good chance to practice. This one wasn't too challenging. Again, I changed her hair from blue to brown to keep things looking natural, since I don't think those time periods had blue hair dye, but I could be wrong. I was looking at some link reference sheets for this one, but I feel like I should have gone with something a bit closer to Flynn's tunic with the various stitching and panels added in, just to give the piece a bit more detail. So for her outfit, like before, I want to keep everything a bit more soft, more saturated than the last illustration, but still soft on the shading. I think this is the first time I've drawn her without something flowy, like her usual sash or a skirt or her tail. It's kind of weird. I should have found a way to work a sash in there. I added a bit of work on her belt, like a small dagger and a little pouch, since that seems to be the staple of any young adventurer. They need to have a Batman-style belt, just with pouches and not gadgets. I wanted to tie on a little coin pouch too, but I couldn't find a good reference, and everything I was drawing was just looking kind of weird, so I swapped it out for the stiffer pouch on her hip. I also wanted her to have a bit of character, so I drew a rag on her dominant hand, like she was practicing with a sword and cut her hand. To keep things more PG though, since I don't really do gore, at least not here, I avoided dirtying up her makeshift bandage. I also added a simple wrist guard to the same hand to hopefully help convey that idea just a bit more. I should have just drawn her with a sword, darn it. That's a missed opportunity there. I don't know why I didn't think of that. From there, I shaded like normal, trying not to make things too shiny. I've noticed that some of my recent stuff has a bit too much highlighting, so I'm trying to avoid making things super shiny. except of course for hair and metal and the eyes. So I kept blending things out quite a bit. Some things turned out a bit duller than I would have liked, so I guess I need to start playing around with textures or something, just to help differentiate between things a bit more. So for the background, I wanted to keep things simple, so I used the same circle idea from the last one and I threw in some pre-made trees to fill up that circular frame. From there, I added in the same sparkles and frame and moved on to the last illustration for today. So for Ash, I still wanted that adventurer feel to her, but a bit more high class than Ray's was. So I used yet another nameless prince. Good job on giving your characters character, Disney. This time from Snow White. I wanted the cape to kind of mimic her tail that she would normally have, so I tapered it in a bit more than the prince's. I also gave her the same cuffs that she normally has, along with modified parts for usual outfit like her belt and high collar. Unfortunately, it was really late when I started working on Ash here, and I started getting a bit delirious, so I forgot to add things like a strap on her belt for the sword, the insignia I plan to put on her little brooch there, and the texture for her sword scabbard. Whoops. I need to stop working late. I can get pretty scatterbrained. So anyway, like yesterday, I wanted her to look a bit more natural than normal, so again, I changed her hair from blue to black and toned down the saturation. I think I should have toned it down a bit more because it still looks pretty blue-green to me, but I don't know, maybe that's just me. I did do a bit of her eyeshadow this time, but I avoided doing the black that she normally has, instead of going for a warmer brown tone to again keep things a bit more natural. The shading on Ash was a little bit easier this time. The darker tones are just easier for me to work and do shading on. So I guess I need to practice more with light tones. Even though I use the same colors that she normally has, it's looking a lot lighter this time around. I don't know, maybe it's the cape that's throwing me off. So I wanted to do a bit of practice doing detail on the hood. Hi, Houdini. Hello. So I wanted to do a bit of practice on the hilt of her sword, but I don't think it came out too well, but it's a pretty minor detail. I wanted to go for more of that etched in look, but I don't think I conveyed that very well. But practice makes perfect. So I continued shading as normal while I was trying to think ahead for what I wanted to do in the background. Now I knew I didn't want to do any sparkles. Hi, Houdini. Now I know I didn't want to do any sparkles like last time, and since I wanted to convey that adventurer feeling, I decided I wanted to do an old map. But looking at old-fashioned maps, I thought that might look a bit too complicated for the background. So I added in some texture to make sort of an old paper look and decided to go with a compass rose instead. Now I had never done one of these before, and I figured this was a good a time as any to start practicing. So I avoided the highly detailed one since I knew Ash would cover most of it, and I went for more of a simplistic style instead. Man, I never noticed how precise everything was for these things. I even had to bust out the ruler tool to help me get things right. So I was planning on leaving it as this more simplistic compass rose, but in flipping through different references, I saw a lot of two-shaded ones and kind of wanted to try on one of those. So using the polyline selection tool and a whole lot of patience, I added highlights to all the proper parts of the compass. I think some of you may already know the problem that's coming up here. See, I did the whole thing with Ash's layers hidden, so I forgot where she was on the canvas. So all that hard work I put into the rose, you can't even see. That figures. I did try moving it around and I tried moving Ash around, but no matter what I did, Ash just kept covering it up. Thanks a lot. But that wraps things up for today, and I'll see you guys tomorrow for Faith, Trust, and Pixie Dust. Bye for now.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls.